Picture this. You wake up on a Tuesday morning just like any other. You make your coffee, you open your phone, and you check the one app you've been watching obsessively for months because you're so close, so incredibly close to the number that's going to change your life. And the balance reads 0. Not low, not a glitch, 0. My name is Sophia Reyes. I'm 29 years old, and the $112,000 I spent 7 years saving to move my daughter and myself out of a one-bedroom apartment, money I called our Freedom Fund, had vanished overnight. Transferred by my own uncle, a man whose name was on my account because he promised 7 years ago that he only wanted to protect me. Before I tell you what I did next, and trust me, what I did will surprise you, I need you to understand one thing. The theft was just the final chapter. The real story started a long time before that Tuesday morning. Stay with me, because this one's going to change how you think about family, loyalty, and who you owe your future to. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, the kind of dry, sun-hammered heat that makes everything feel urgent. My mother, Gloria Reyes, raised me mostly alone after my father left when I was 6. She worked double shifts at a hospital laundry facility, came home smelling like industrial detergent, and still managed to cook dinner most nights. We weren't poor in the way people imagine. We had food, a roof, clean clothes, but we were close to the edge, always one unexpected bill away from real trouble. My mother's brother, my Uncle Hector, was the family's success story. He owned a small chain of auto repair shops across the Phoenix metro area, drove a new truck every 2 years, and showed up to family gatherings like a visiting dignitary. Everyone treated him that way too. When Hector spoke at the dinner table, forks went down. And Hector liked me. He told me I was sharp. He told me I had potential. He helped me buy my first laptop when I was 14, paid for 2 semesters of community college when my mother couldn't, and was the first person to tell me I was capable of more than what my zip code suggested. I believed him. I loved him for it. What I didn't understand then, and what took me years of very expensive experience to finally see, was that Hector's generosity always had a ledger. Every gift was an investment. Every act of kindness was a loan, even when no terms were discussed. And one day, the bill would come. By the time I was 19, the unspoken arrangement in our family was already established. Hector helped people. In return, people were available when Hector needed them. Available to vouch for him, to show up for him, to look the other way for him. Available to give, if giving was what he required. I was young. I thought that was just how love worked. When my daughter Maya was born, I was 22, single, just promoted to my first real office job at a logistics company called Summit Freight. Hector was the one who offered to co-sign on a new savings account. "You're going to need to build something, mija," he said, leaning across my kitchen table with that calm, certain voice. "You've got a baby now. A single mother needs a safety net. I'll put my name on the account, just in case something happens and you need help accessing funds quickly. It's just a formality." I was 22 years old with a 3-month-old baby and no financial safety net. I said yes. I signed the paperwork. I never took his name off. I want you to understand what 7 years of disciplined saving looks like for someone earning a modest salary while raising a child alone. It looks like buying Maya's school supplies at the dollar store while her classmates had matching backpacks from Target. It looks like skipping every office happy hour because that's $14 I could put toward the fund. It looks like driving a 2009 Honda Fit with a cracked dashboard and a driver's side window that only goes down halfway. It looks like telling myself every time I denied myself something small, "This is temporary. This is for the future." I kept a spreadsheet. Not obsessively, I'm a logistics coordinator. Tracking details is just how my brain works. But every month, I logged the balance, the contribution, the projected timeline. Year 1, $8,400. Year 2, $21,000. Year 3, $36,200. Year 4, $52,800. Year 5, $71,400. Year 6, $93,100. Year 7, $112,480. My goal was $120,000, enough for a solid down payment on a modest house in the East Valley, where Maya could have a yard, where she'd stop sharing a bedroom wall with neighbors whose music shook the plaster at midnight, where she could bring friends home without me feeling a flash of embarrassment. I was 8 months away from that goal. I had already toured one house, a 3-bedroom brick ranch in Mesa with a covered patio and a lemon tree in the backyard. The listing agent called it a gem. Maya walked through the empty rooms and said, quietly, like she was afraid to want it too much, "Mom, this one." I told her we'd be back. Here's something I need to tell you, because it's important to understand how this kind of situation happens to people who aren't naive, who aren't careless, who aren't stupid. It doesn't happen all at once. Over the 7 years I was building that account, Hector had been borrowing from me in other ways. Not from the savings account, not yet, but from my life, my time, my capacity, my goodwill. When his shop on Camelback Road had a cash flow problem, I lent him $4,000 from my checking account. He paid back $2,500. The rest was absorbed into what he'd done for me. His words. When my cousin, Dario, Hector's son, needed a character reference letter for a job application after some legal trouble, I wrote it. When Dario crashed a company vehicle and needed someone to say he'd been staying with me that weekend, I lied for him. When Hector's ex-wife was pursuing him for back support payments and needed a witness statement, I declined, and the family frosted me for 2 months until I apologized. I'm not listing these things to make myself sound like a victim. I'm listing them because looking back, I can see the pattern so clearly. Every request was framed as family. Every refusal was a betrayal. Every compliance was rewarded with Hector's warmth and approval, which I realize now I craved more than I ever admitted. He was the father figure my father had refused to be, and I would have done almost anything to keep him proud of me. Almost. It was a Tuesday in late April. Maya had a school field trip. I'd packed her lunch, kissed her goodbye, and sat down at my desk with a second cup of coffee to get ahead on a freight report. My phone buzzed with an email notification from my bank, Pacific Crest Savings. Transaction alert. Outgoing transfer $112,480.00. I actually laughed, out loud, like it was so absurd it had to be a phishing attempt. I opened the app. 0. The account I'd spent 7 years building had been drained at 2:14 in the morning. My hands were steady when I called the bank, which surprised me. I think my body didn't understand what my eyes were reading. The customer service representative was kind, unhurried, and devastatingly matter-of-fact. The transfer had been initiated through the bank's online portal, using the co-owner login credentials. The co-owner, Hector Reyes, had transferred the full balance to an external account. The transfer had been processed and confirmed. The funds were gone. I drove to Hector's house before I drove to the bank. I know that wasn't the logical move, but I needed to look at him. He answered the door in his work clothes, coffee in hand, like he'd been expecting me. Sophia. Not a question, not surprise, just my name. The account, I said. He sighed, the kind of sigh that says, I knew this conversation was coming and I'm already tired of it. Come inside. I didn't move. Tell me from here. Another sigh. Dario's in trouble, Sophia. Real trouble. He owes money, serious money, to people who aren't going to wait. I needed to clear it. I'll pay you back, every cent. That was my down payment, Hector, for Maya's house, 7 years. And Maya has a good mother with a good job who can rebuild. Dario could have been hurt. I made a call. That's what family does. He leaned against the doorframe, calm as cement. You're young. You'll recover. I looked at him for a long time. Then I said, I hope you kept your receipts. And I walked back to my car. If you've ever had someone you trusted completely look you in the face and tell you your future doesn't matter as much as their comfort, drop a comment below. you are not alone. And keep watching, because what happens next might be the most important part of this whole story. I sat in my car outside Hector's house for 11 minutes. I know because I watched the clock. Then I made 2 calls. The first was to my best friend, Priya Nair, who I'd known since our Summit Freight days. Priya had left the company 2 years earlier to become a paralegal at a firm downtown that handled financial and civil litigation. "Tell me everything," she said, before I'd finished the opening sentence. I'd told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for 5 seconds. Then, "Sophia, he had legal access to the account. That means civil recovery is more complex than you might hope. But, and this is a big but, the question is how he accessed your online portal to initiate the transfer. If he used your login credentials without your knowledge, that's a different conversation. He's a co-owner. Wouldn't he have his own credentials?" "Yes, but pull up the transfer confirmation email, read me the access log details. It should show which profile initiated the session." I forwarded her the email. "Sophia," her voice had changed, "the session that initiated this transfer was opened using your profile login, not his co-owner credentials. He didn't log in as himself. He logged in as you." I felt cold. He accessed your account using your credentials, without your authorization, and initiated a transfer. Even with co-owner status, using another person's login credentials without their consent is, depending on how it was done, potentially criminal. The second call was to my Aunt Cecilia, Hector's older sister and the one person in our family who had always called things what they were. "I heard," she said, before I could speak. "Family networks operate at the speed of guilt." "Did you know?" A pause. I knew Dario was in deep trouble. I didn't know Hector would do this. "But, Sophia." Another pause. "I'm not surprised." "What do I do?" Her voice was soft but firm. "You do what you should have done every time this family asked you to look the other way. You tell the truth." Over the next 48 hours, I moved fast. Priya connected me with one of the senior attorneys at her firm, a woman named Claire O'Coffer, who handled financial fraud cases. Claire was calm, direct, and had no patience for ambiguity. "The co-ownership complicates recovery," she told me in her office, my phone and printed statements spread across her desk. "But the use of your login credentials rather than his own is the crack in his armor. Do you have any idea how he got your password?" I thought about it. My mother uses the same password for everything. She might have it written down. He visits her. Claire made a note. "We'll need a digital forensic analysis of the access log. The bank will cooperate if we serve a formal request. I'm also going to request the IP address and device used to initiate that session. If it traces back to his home or his devices, we have the foundation for an unauthorized access claim." She filed a formal dispute with Pacific Crest Savings that afternoon. Meanwhile, I called the one tech expert I trusted completely, a friend named James Tran, who ran IT security for a mid-size healthcare company and had once spent 40 minutes explaining to me how metadata works at a birthday party. James wasn't dramatic about it. He just pulled the confirmation email, examined the access logs from the bank's initial disclosure, and called me back in 3 hours. The session was initiated from a device that has never previously been registered to your profile. The IP address is residential. I can get it narrowed down, but it'll require a subpoena for the ISP. What I can tell you right now is this transfer was not initiated from your phone, your laptop, or any device you own. He paused. "Also, Sophia, you might want to pull your credit report." I did it while he was still on the line. There it was. A personal loan for $18,000 opened 4 months earlier, in my name, with my social security number. I hadn't applied for any loan. I sat on the floor of my apartment, Maya was at school, mercifully, and I just breathed for a minute. Then I opened my laptop and began typing a police report. Detective Amanda Vasquez of the Phoenix PD Financial Crimes Unit had the kind of eyes that had heard every version of every story and still managed to look interested. I laid everything out in front of her. Bank statements, Claire's formal dispute letter, James's forensic summary, my credit report showing the fraudulent loan, a printed spreadsheet showing 7 years of contributions to the account. She read through everything carefully. "Ms. Reyes," she said, "what you've presented is consistent with identity theft under Arizona Revised Statutes 13-2008, unauthorized computer access, and potentially bank fraud under federal statutes. The fraudulent loan, if confirmed as unauthorized, is a separate criminal count. What happens now? We open an investigation. Pacific Crest will be subpoenaed for full access logs. If the device and IP analysis confirms the access originated from someone other than yourself, we'll have grounds for arrest." She slid a form across the desk. "This is your official report. Case number PHX FC 2024-04471. I signed it. As I was leaving, she said, "I should tell you, the loan proceeds. Do you have any idea where that $18,000 went?" I didn't then. I found out later. It had gone into the same account Hector used for his shops, the same account that now also held my $112,480. Here's where I have to ask you something, and I want you to really think about it before you scroll down. If you found out someone you loved had been systematically dismantling your future for their own gain, and you had the evidence to stop them, what would you do? Leave your answer in the comments, because what I chose to do next is something I'm still asked about. Within 24 hours of filing the police report, the calls started. My mother, Gloria, called 11 times before I picked up. "Sophia, please, he said he'd pay it back. He swears it. If you take this to the police, it will destroy everything. He could go to jail, his shops, his workers, everything he built, partly with my money, Mom." Silence. "That's not—" "He opened a loan in my name, Mom. He used my social security number and my identity to borrow $18,000 without my knowledge. That isn't a family misunderstanding. That is a crime." My cousin Letitia texted, "You're really doing this to the family over money?" Dario, the same cousin I had lied for, sent a voice message. "Sophia, I can't believe you. He was protecting me. You have a good job. You can earn it back." I listened to that message 3 times. Then I saved it. You know who didn't call to pressure me? Aunt Cecilia. She texted once, "I'm proud of you. Don't let them wear you down." I kept that one too. 6 days after I filed the report, I received a call from Pacific Crest Savings Fraud Investigation Team. Their internal analysis, combined with the forensic summary from James and the police subpoena, confirmed everything. The transfer had been initiated using my login credentials from a device registered to Hector's home network. The session timestamp was 2:09 a.m., while I was asleep. The fraudulent loan had been opened using my personal information, social security number, date of birth, mother's maiden name, through an online lender. The application had been submitted from the same IP address 3 months earlier, also in the middle of the night. The investigator's voice was professional and measured, but I could hear something underneath it. "Ms. Reyes, we've seen a lot of account fraud cases. Typically, they're committed by strangers, hackers, scammers. When the perpetrator is a family member who had partial legitimate access, it's always more complicated emotionally. But our findings are unambiguous. These transactions were unauthorized. What happens with my money? Once the criminal investigation reaches the threshold for charges, which given this evidence profile should be within a few weeks, we'll begin the reversal process. Full restitution of $112,480. Timeline approximately 30 to 45 days. I thanked him and sat very still for a while. Then I called Claire. "The arrest warrant," she said. "Let's talk timing." Here's the thing about timing. The practical choice would have been quiet. A knock on Hector's door early on a Tuesday morning, a brief and undramatic arrest with no audience, a story that could be managed, minimized, maybe eventually buried under the family's extraordinary capacity for rewriting history. Hector would have preferred it that way. But 3 days before Detective Vasquez was ready to execute the warrant, I saw something on Facebook. Dario had created an event page. Welcome Home Celebration, Dario's new place. Saturday, May 11th, 7 p.m. Come celebrate. The apartment in the photo was stunning. Downtown Scottsdale, floor-to-ceiling windows, a skyline view, the kind of place that costs real money. I looked up the building. Estimated unit value, $380,000. My money had bought Dario's freedom from his debts, and apparently the rest of it had bought him a downtown penthouse apartment that he was now celebrating on social media with 63 confirmed guests. The caption read, "Hard times build character. Grateful for the people who believed in me." I stared at my screen for a long time. Then I called Detective Vasquez. "I asked about timing," I said. "I did. Saturday, May 11th, 7 p.m., 4120 Camelback Road, Unit 1408, Scottsdale. There'll be somewhere between 50 and 60 witnesses." A pause. "That's unconventional. So is stealing from your niece." A longer pause, then, "I'll make it work." Okay, I need to stop here because I know what some of you are thinking, and I want to ask you directly, would you have made the same call? Drop A in the comments if you would have let the arrest happen quietly. Drop B if you would have done exactly what I did. No judgment either way. But stay with me because the next part of this story is the part I'll never forget. The party was everything the photos promised. I found out later from Aunt Cecilia, who had been invited and attended with the specific intention of watching, that the apartment was beautiful. Catered food, an open bar, guests dressed for an occasion. Dario circulated with the ease of someone who has never spent a night worrying about money. Hector stood at the center of it all, doing what Hector does best, holding court. "When someone in this family needs help, we show up," he reportedly said to a cluster of nodding relatives. "That's what we do. That's what I've always done." My mother was there. She didn't know what was coming. Aunt Cecilia told me later that the atmosphere shifted at exactly 7:22 p.m. 2 uniformed officers appeared in the hallway. Behind them was, in civilian clothes, Detective Vasquez. "We're looking for Hector Reyes." The room, according to Cecilia, went absolutely silent. Hector's composure held for about 15 seconds. Old habit, the reflex of someone who has always been able to talk his way out of things. "This is a family event, Detective, whatever this is. Mr. Reyes, you're under arrest on charges of identity theft, unauthorized computer access, and bank fraud. You have the right to remain silent." My mother said his name, once, quietly. Dario didn't move. As they guided Hector toward the door, Detective Vasquez addressed the room, 60-some people holding drinks they had forgotten to sip. For those wondering, the gentleman being arrested is charged with stealing $112,480 from a joint savings account belonging to his niece, using her personal login credentials without her consent while she was asleep. He also used her identity to fraudulently obtain an $18,000 personal loan. The down payment for this apartment came from those stolen funds. The silence lasted a long time. Then someone said, "He stole from his own niece to throw a party?" The guests left in waves. First the co-workers and acquaintances, then the family friends, then the extended relatives who had traveled in from Tucson and Flagstaff. Within 45 minutes, the beautiful apartment had that specific, hallow feeling of a party that ended before it began. I arrived at 8:30 p.m. The door was unlocked. I walked in to find my mother on a white leather sofa, staring at nothing. Dario stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, his back to the room. Aunt Cecilia sat at the kitchen island, the only person in the room who looked neither surprised nor broken. Dario heard me enter and turned. His face was hollowed out. "Sophia." "Don't," I said. I set a folder on the kitchen island. Inside, my 7-year savings spreadsheet, the bank's fraud investigation report, the forensic analysis from James, the police report, the credit report with the fraudulent loan highlighted. "I want you to see what it looks like," I said. "What 7 years looks like in black and white." My mother finally looked at me. "You could have talked to him. He would have paid it back." "He said that after he took it, Mom, not before. Before, he just took it, at 2 a.m., using my password, while I was asleep, while I was dreaming about Maya's backyard." She flinched. "I'm not angry," I said, and I meant it. Anger had burned off somewhere between the police station and this moment. What was left was something quieter and harder. "I'm just done being available." Dario turned from the window. "The apartment. I didn't know he was going to use your money specifically. He said he had a source." "You didn't ask where the source was." He had nothing to say to that. "When you're ready to have a real conversation," I said, "one that doesn't involve asking me to help the people who did this, you know how to reach me. Until then, I'm going to go home to my daughter." Aunt Cecilia walked me out. In the hallway, she took my face in her hands the way she used to when I was small. "You did the right thing," she said. "All of it, every step. It doesn't feel clean. It's not supposed to. That's how you know it was real." Hector hired a defense attorney immediately. Claire kept me informed throughout the process. The charges were serious. Identity theft under Arizona law and federal bank fraud carried potential sentences that his attorney immediately began negotiating down. What worked in his favor: no prior criminal record, his age, 58, and the fact that he did have legitimate co-owner status on the savings account, which created some legal gray area the defense exploited aggressively. What worked against him: the forensic evidence was overwhelming, the fraudulent loan was a separate and indefensible count, and his own access logs had been preserved in their original state, time-stamped and IP confirmed. 6 weeks after his arrest, Hector accepted a plea agreement: 2 years of supervised probation, 250 hours of community service, and full financial restitution of $130,480, the original $112,480, plus the fraudulent $18,000 loan, both to be repaid within 18 months. Pacific Crest Savings had already initiated the reversal of the transfer. The $112,480 returned to my account, a new account, in my name only, with no co-owners, no exceptions, and a password that existed in no one's memory but mine, within 32 days of the investigation's conclusion. The fraudulent loan was removed from my credit report. I sat in my car outside the bank after confirming the balance, and I allowed myself exactly 1 minute to cry. Then I called Claire. "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me," she said. "You built the case. I just filed the paperwork." Hector sold the Scottsdale apartment within 3 months. The story, predictably, had spread. Scottsdale's real estate community is small. When people started asking questions about the source of his down payment, and the answers became public record, the doors closed. Financing dried up. 2 investors who had been considering partnering with him on a project quietly declined. He moved into a 1-bedroom in Tempe. I don't know if that's justice or just consequence. Maybe there's no difference. My mother went through a period I can only describe as grief. Her social world had been built around the version of our family she'd been maintaining for 30 years, the version where Hector was the patriarch who held everything together, where every difficult thing was just family being family. When that version collapsed, she didn't know how to operate. We had one conversation, about a month after the arrest. She didn't apologize for her role, not directly, but she said something that surprised me. "I knew he borrowed from you before. The $4,000, I told myself it was different. I told myself he'd make it right." She paused. I wanted to believe it. It was easier. "I know, Mom." I should have said something when he added himself to your account. I should have said something then. It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement. And for my mother, who spent 40 years smoothing things over rather than naming them, acknowledgement was not nothing. We're not close. We talk once a week, briefly. She asks about Maya. I answer. We are, for now, in the careful rebuilding phase. Cautious, tentative, with the understanding that certain things cannot be undone, only moved around. After everything became public, Priya had shared an anonymized version in an online forum for financial fraud victims. Something unexpected happened. Messages. Dozens of them, then hundreds. My mother did something similar. I've been paying her credit cards for 6 years. I thought I was the only one. I almost didn't file a report because I was afraid of being called a bad daughter. Your story gave me permission. My whole family is telling me I'm being dramatic. Reading this made me realize I'm not. I responded to as many as I could. Some people needed specific resources, attorney referrals, fraud hotlines, credit bureau dispute processes. Others just needed someone to say, "You're not crazy. What happened to you was real, and you are allowed to protect yourself." What struck me most was how many people described the same pattern, the framing of their loyalty as obligation, the gradual erosion of their financial independence through 1,000 small requests, the moment when they realized that the family members asking for help had no interest in the version of them that stopped giving. One message has stayed with me. A woman from Atlanta, a teacher, who wrote, "I've been the responsible one in my family since I was 12 years old. I earned 2 degrees and built a 401k while my brother got bailed out over and over. I always told myself that's just what it means to be the capable one." Reading your story made me realize capability was never the reason they came to me. Accessibility was. I was available, and they took advantage of that until I made myself unavailable. Thank you for showing me what unavailable looks like. I printed that one out. It's on my refrigerator. 7 months after my account was restored, I bought a house. It wasn't in Mesa. The ranch with the lemon tree had sold months earlier, and honestly, I'd moved on from it. What I found instead, in a quieter part of Gilbert, slightly further out but with better schools, was better. 3 bedrooms, a renovated kitchen with real counter space, a covered porch off the back, and a backyard with an existing raised garden bed and 2 established fruit trees, an orange and a peach. Maya walked through it with her characteristic quiet focus. She stopped in the backyard and looked at the trees for a long time. "Mom," she said, "can we get a dog?" I laughed so hard I had to sit down on the back steps. The closing was on a Friday morning in November. I signed 17 documents, accepted a set of keys, and drove directly to the house instead of back to the apartment. I sat on the back porch steps in the afternoon light and ate a peach directly off the tree. It was perfect. That evening, Aunt Cecilia showed up at the door with a braided pepper plant in a terracotta pot. "For your garden," she said. I didn't say anything. I just pulled her into the kind of hug that says everything that doesn't need words. I'm writing this from the back porch on a Saturday morning, coffee going cold beside me, Maya watching something loud. The pepper plant Cecilia brought has produced more than I know what to do with. The orange tree is coming into its second bloom. I gave a bag of fruit to the neighbors last week, a couple who have lived on this street for 20 years, and who, I'm realizing, are the kind of steady, unbothered people I want to surround myself with. Hector is halfway through his probation. From what Cecilia hears, his shops are struggling, not because of legal consequences directly, but because reputation in business is everything, and the story got out. One of his longtime mechanics quit. A fleet contract didn't renew. I feel nothing particular about that. Not satisfaction, not guilt. Actions have consequences. That's not philosophy. That's just physics. Dario reached out once, 3 months ago. A text. "Sophia, I've been thinking. I know I was wrong to accept what Dad did. I'm sorry." I read it 3 times, looking for the ask underneath the apology. There wasn't one, as far as I could tell. I texted back, "Thank you for saying that. I need more time. and I put the phone down. Maybe eventually there will be something to rebuild there. Probably not what existed before. I've learned that some versions of a relationship are built on imbalances that can't survive honesty. But something new, maybe. Smaller, more honest, and more equal. I don't know yet. My mother comes for Sunday dinner twice a month. We talk about Maya, about the garden, about a book club she's joined at the library. We don't talk about Hector. Not yet. The territory is still too new, too unmapped. But last month, after dinner, she stood in the kitchen doorway and looked around at the house, really looked at it, and said, "You did this yourself. All of this." I said, "Pretty much." She nodded slowly, and then she said, very quietly, "I should have told you a long time ago. You didn't owe him anything." I think about that a lot. Here's what I know now that I didn't know at 22. Co-owner on a bank account is not a title, it's a power, and power given to the wrong person, no matter how much you love them, becomes a liability. Family helps family is a beautiful principle, but there's a version of it that gets used as a tool of extraction, a script for making you feel that protecting your own future is somehow a betrayal of people who would never protect yours. I spent 7 years building something, and in the process of defending it, I discovered something I hadn't known I was also building: the ability to say no clearly, to act on my own behalf without apology, and to trust that choosing myself didn't make me selfish. It made me someone Maya can learn from. That feels like the most important thing. If you've been the one your family comes to, the responsible one, the capable one, the one who always figures it out, I want you to hear this. Your capability is yours. Your future is yours. Your savings, your energy, your time, these belong to you. The people who love you for who you are will support you in protecting them. The people who only value what you can give them will call your boundaries a betrayal. Learn to tell the difference, and then act accordingly. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment. Tell me, have you ever had a family member cross a financial line?